Hello everyone, welcome to What If Deku Fell in Love with Froppy Tsuyu Asui Movie 1. Before we start, please go support PresidentThanos for writing that awesome fanfic. Class 1A just moved into the dorms and had a competition. The idea had been suggested by Asui, known by most of her class as Tsu, to get her spirits up. She had tried to get her classmates to not go against the law and save a kidnapped friend, but they did it anyway, and that made her feel worthless. Most just thought she was sad she couldn't do anything, but one recognized the look in her eyes. Her face may not be able to express much, but her eyes showed it all, and Izuku Midoriya wasn't about to let someone else feel how he felt for years. Talk. Class 1A, some of, if not the, most chaotic set of teenagers in the world. They've been attacked again and again, a good portion of them have broken the law in the name of justice. And now, they're judging each other's dorm rooms. Why? You may ask. To get to know who has the best taste, of course. Though something was bothering their star green-haired mess Izuku Midoriya, where was Tsuyu Asui, or as she insisted everyone call her Tsu. The group of students were walking away from the most recent room when Izuku looked back. He met the eyes of the girl he was worried about, and now he was even more worried. He knew that look in her eyes, it was hard not to, not after 11 years of seeing it every time he looked in the mirror. She wasn't in a good place, but before he could say anything, she shut her door. Izuku, oh God. I hope she comes out. I'll have to talk to her, from the looks of it, no one else knows. I'll save you, Tsu. He followed the rest of the group as they kept checking out rooms. Sato was declared the winner, solely because he made cake. Uraraka walked up to a small group of classmates, the ones who went after Bakugo to rescue him. Uraraka. Hey guys, Tsu said she wanted to talk to you outside. Izuku, please tell us. Keeping it in won't help. They followed Uraraka outside, where Tsu was standing. They walked over and she started talking. Tsu, Carol, when we talked in the hospital, I thought I stopped you. I thought my words had more power on you all, but ever since Mr. Aizawa said what he did, I felt like I didn't do enough. I came up with the idea of the room contest to try and make things go back to normal, but I just couldn't bring myself to join. She started crying, and the BRS Bakugo rescue squad hugged the girl, though Izuku could see there was still stuff on her mind, but her crying and their hug stopped her from getting it all out. He knew that small bit would eat at her, grow to an immense size, and she would burst. It was late at night, everyone was asleep, well, almost everyone. Izuku was awake, and he knew Tsu was too, and he wasn't about to leave her to her own destructive thoughts. He knew Mr. Aizawa would be patrolling in the night for a few weeks until routines were created, so he sent her a quick text, opened his balcony door, and hopped over to hers. When he landed, the door opened slowly. Soon Izuku could see the frog girl, and he could tell she had been crying. Without a word, he stepped over to her, and gave her the biggest hug he could. Tsu, Midoriya? Izuku. Sure, don't ask, just talk. I know you didn't get everything off of your chest. Just tell me. They walked over to her bed and sat down. He could tell she was starting to tear up again, but she managed to keep them down while she talked. Tsu. It's just Karo, I thought we were all friends. That my words couldn't be pushed aside, that I could trust you all to Karo not do anything stupid if I said something. I feel so worthless, like I don't mean anything to anyone. She started crying, finally getting everything out. Izuku quickly hugged her, trying to ease her fears. Izuku. I'm so sorry, Tsu. We just couldn't let Kaken stay in danger. I couldn't, not after he was just out of reach at the camp. They sat like that for a while before Tsu calmed down enough to talk. Tsu. Midoriya. That was the first time you didn't forget to call me Tsu. Izuku went a little red at the realization and started mumbling. Tsu. Thank you? How did you know? My face doesn't really support my emotions. Izuku calmed down when she asked, memories flooding his brain. Izuku. The look in your eyes, it was one I know. One of worthlessness, self-pity, self-loathing. Tsu. How? How do you know? Izuku wouldn't usually share much about himself. Hell, not even All Might knew the extent of him being bullied, but talking with Tsu felt different, safer. Izuku. When you see it in the mirror for 11 years, it gets familiar. Tsu. What happened? Izuku. A lot of bullying. My quirk was too powerful for my body, so it just wouldn't activate at all until the day before the entrance exams, so I was diagnosed quirkless. It was hell, to say the least. So just know, I know how unhealthy it is to keep these things in. Tsu nodded, leaning on the boy. Eventually he felt her breathing become steady and soft, indicating she fell asleep. He gently laid her down on her bed, found a paper and left a note before leaving. He made it back to his room. Just over an hour had passed, and he fell asleep, prepared to help Tsu through her problems. Advice. Izuku woke up, remembering the events of the previous day, moving in, the room competition, Tsu's talk outside, and the private talk they had in her dorm room later in the night. He got up and got ready for the day. He looked at the clock, seeing it was only 5 o'clock, meaning he still had training time before anyone else got up. He went down to the kitchen in the common space to get some quick breakfast, but when he got there, so was Tsu. He walked over to the fruit bowl, grabbed an apple, and bit into it, finding nothing but foam. Izuku bleh. Tsu turned around, finally realizing the boy was there. Tsu. Wait. Those are fake? Karo. Izuku. Apparently. Who in their right mind puts fake fruit in a fruit basket owned by Hero's students? Probably Aizawa. It's gonna be the only entertainment he gets while here in the dorms with us. Tsu laughed a little. Tsu. Yeah, maybe. Hey Midoriya? Izuku. Yeah, Tsu? Tsu. Do you think that maybe you could not tell anyone about what you know? About my feelings? Izuku. Sure. Just know that means I'm gonna be checking on you more. Like I said last night, I know how unhealthy it is to bottle it up. Tsu just nodded and asked a question. Tsu. Where are you going? Karo, today's a free day. Izuku. I'm going to go train, not much, just a mile run and hitting the gym for a couple hours. Tsu. Could I join you? Izuku. I don't see why not, come on, let's go. Tsu. I need to change first. I'll be out in a minute. Karo. Izuku nodded as she walked to the elevator, going to her room. She came back a few minutes later, in her own workout clothes. He led her outside, did some stretches, and they started running. They had made it back to the dorms from their morning training at 8 o'clock. As the two walked inside, they noticed everyone was already awake and hanging out. Izuku and Tsu greeted their friends. Though Izuku noticed Tsu seemed less enthusiastic about talking to them, he would have to talk to her about it later. They went to their respective rooms to change and went back down to enjoy the day. Tsu was sticking close to Izuku the whole time, though no one really noticed since she was already part of his friend group. Suddenly Ashido stood up and called for everyone's attention. Ashido. Alright, how about we all go to that new karaoke place that opened up? I've already gotten permission from Mr. Aizawa. Yaoyorozu. That sounds like a great idea, hold on. She pulled out her phone, called someone, and walked off. When she came back, she had a huge smile on her face. Yaoyorozu. I just called and got us one of their private party rooms, fit for 30. It's on me, so don't be afraid to order anything. Izuku glanced over to Tsu, who looked back at him and nodded. She would be going. He smiled and nodded too. Izuku. Yeah, sounds great. Let's go. They all went to get ready, except for Izuku and Tsu, who had basically pulled each other aside. Tsu. Karo, we both have something to say, don't we? You go first. Izuku. Alright then. I noticed you weren't as, how do I put this, enthusiastic? Yes, sure. When talking with everyone else. What's going on? Tsu looked down, like she felt guilty. Tsu. I just can't pretend like it didn't happen. I want to, but I can't. Karo, it's so hard. How did you do this? Izuku sighed. Izuku. I didn't. To be honest, I stopped trying, but that isn't healthy. And unlike me, they still want to be friends with you. I was rejected completely. You're worried you're going to be when you haven't been. You still have a chance, Tsu. And I promise, I'll always be your friend. She hugged him tightly. He felt wet spots on his shirt, and heard soft sobs. He put his arms around her, comforting the frog girl. She let go of him after a minute, wiped her eyes, and looked up. Then she asked a question he didn't expect. Tsu, now it's my turn. When are you gonna ask Ochako out? Karo. Izuku. What? I don't like her like that. Tsu. But everyone knows you like her. You get nervous and all red whenever she gets close to you. Izuku. That's because of how close she gets. The reason I'm not blushing or nervously muttering right now is because I was gonna bring you over here. It's a personal space thing I've had. No one can hurt me or anything if I don't let them get close to me. Tsu. Karo, well, that's a bit of a letdown. She likes you, you know. Izuku. I'm aware. Apparently playing dance just made that hole bigger and harder to get out of. She's my best friend and I don't want that to change, but I'm worried if I just flat out reject her, like I'm gonna have to at this point, it'll create a rift between us. Tsu put a finger on her chin, a habit of hers she picked up to let people know she's thinking. Tsu. Or you could wait for her to confess, and let her down slowly and carefully. Izuku thought about it and nodded. Izuku. You're right. Now let's go, I can hear the elevators coming down. She nodded as they walked back out to the common space, waiting for their classmates. Hang out. The class all walked into the building. It wasn't new, just the business was. The karaoke place had just recently replaced the restaurant, though it wasn't that popular. Yaoyorozu walked up to the host standing near the entrance. Host. Hello, miss. How may I help you? Yaoyorozu. I have a reservation for my class in one of the party rooms. It's under Yaoyorozu, and it's a party of 20. The host tapped on the screen of the tablet he had. Host. Right this way, please. He led the class to the back of the place and to a door which he opened. Host. Please enjoy your stay. We have no other reservations in this room, so stay as long as you like, okay? Just press the small button on the wall inside and a waiter will be with you shortly. Have fun. They all thanked the worker as they walked inside. It was a large, soundproof room, with sound foam lining the walls, 4 large sofas, and a couple of reclining chairs, all surrounding a small stage with 3 microphones on it for collaborative songs. They all spied the button the host had mentioned by the door, remembering it for later. Izuku looked at Tsu, who seemed to be a little more comfortable than before, and smiled. Just then someone pushed him forward and onto stage. When he turned around, Bakugo of all people was standing next to him on stage. Bakugo. Come on, you damn nerd. I know how good you are, so sing for us already. Whispering. Besides, I'm sure Frog Legs could use the boost. Yes, I noticed too, and as much as I hate saying this, you're better than me at this stuff, so keep doing good. Izuku just nodded in confusion as he walked off stage. Izuku. Okay then, what should I sing, guys? Jairu. Oh, I know, I recently heard this one pre-Quirk era song on the radio, and when I looked it up I really liked it. Izuku. But I can't sing it if I don't know it. Jairu. We can use the lyric prompter if you want. She pointed to screen on the wall in front of Izuku. She went to the machine in the corner, turned it on, and selected the song. As it ended, everyone, minus Bakugo, who had a proud smile on his face for some reason, looked at Izuku, amazement in their eyes. He looked at Tsu, whose eyes were sparkling. Bakugo. I told you he could sing. Izuku. That was a really good song choice, Jairu. What's the artist's name? Jairu. Divide Music, why? Izuku walked over to the machine and searched for Divide songs. Then he found one that sounded fun, and needed 2 people. He selected it, walked over to Tsu, and dragged her up. He smiled at her as the song started. The song ended. Tsu and Izuku looked at each other, smiling, smiling as well as Tsu can with her face. The class started clapping as they stepped off the stage and sat with the rest of their friends. Izuku looked to Bakugo, who just nodded. Ida. Amazing, both of you did so good. I believe I speak for the rest of us when I say it's about time to eat. The class nodded and Ida pressed the button. A waitress walked in a couple minutes later and took down what everyone wanted. She left and came back half an hour later with 2 carts of food, then left again. They continued ate for a while before going back to taking turns singing. Eventually Bakugo got to start picking songs, and immediately picked something he found while looking up Divide and other artists he worked with. He grabbed both Izuku and Kaminari by the wrists and dragged them up with him. The class looked at the three guys amazed as they walked off the stage. The class returned just before their curfew and immediately went to their rooms. Tsu was about to crawl into bed when she heard her phone vibrate. She looked at it. Izuku texted her to let him in. A knock was heard at her balcony door, and she went to open it. Tsu, you could just come through my main door. Karo, I hope this doesn't become nightly. Izuku walked in as she joked. They both sat on her bed. Izuku, how was it? Hanging out with everyone? Tsu, it was fun, I liked it. Thanks for having me sing with you, Midoriya. Karo. Izuku, it's no problem, I like singing with you, Tsu. But something was bothering me a little. Tsu tilted her head to ask what it was. Izuku, you weren't talking a whole lot. I could tell you wanted to, but you weren't. Tsu, oh, that? I just thought I would have been ignored. Karo, you seemed to be the only one who paid attention to me. Izuku shook his head and hugged her. Izuku, no, I wasn't. Kaken caught on to your change too. He's trusting me to take care of you myself. He was serious too. Called you frog legs instead of frog face. He's only nicer like that when he's being serious. I didn't tell him anything though, so don't worry. They separated and Izuku got up to leave, but Tsu stopped him. Tsu, Karo, before you go. Thank you, Midoriya, for everything you're doing. Izuku, you don't need to thank me, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Good night, Tsu. Tsu, good night, Midoriya. He smiled at her as he activated his quirk and jumped over to his room, needing sleep for school the next day. Incident. The class had been working on special moves with their quirks for about a week. Tsu had figured out how to camouflage better, and Izuku had started kicking rather than punching. Izuku also observed as Tsu got better and better throughout the training. She was almost back to her old self when it came to socializing, but she still discreetly clung to Izuku. He walked over to her one day in the middle of training. Izuku. Tsu. Tsu. Yeah, Midoriya? Izuku. Do you think you could help me with my new technique? I've already got my kicks down pretty good, but I'm trying to focus on my legs, so if you could help with maneuvering, that'd be great. Tsu. After what you've done for me, there's no way I could say no. Karo, let's start now. Izuku, yeah. As they started training, on the other side of the gym, two people were having a conversation. Uraraka. They seem awfully close, don't they? Ida. They've been closer since we moved in. Perhaps the closer vicinity was the catalyst for their friendship. Uraraka. Yeah. Maybe. Anyway, enough of that. When do you think I should tell him? Ida. I suggest a special moment. Like his birthday, a special holiday, something like that. Good luck though, Uraraka. Now, we should get back to training. Uraraka. Right. A few hours passed, and they were almost done. Izuku had picked up on Tsu's instructions quickly. They were just walking towards the locker rooms when Aizawa ran over way quicker than normal. Aizawa. Asui, it's your brother, Sammy Dare. He was hit by a truck when getting home from school. He was hurt bad, multiple broken bones. He's stable right now, but the doctors think his frog quirk could cause his bones to move and cause more internal injuries. You can go now, and yes, Midoriya can come too if you want him to. Izuku looked at Tsu, worry and concern in her eyes, as well as that look, the one he had just spent a week getting rid of, it was returning. He grabbed her and pulled her to the locker rooms. He pushed her inside and went to the boys to change. When he left, she was running out, shoes untied, hair a mess from rushing, and he followed her. He got a text from Aizawa telling him which hospital it was. When they made it to the train station, Tsu was a mess. The train arrived and they got on. The car they got on was empty. Before they could sit down, Izuku wrapped her in a hug. Izuku. He'll be fine, Tsu. If he's anything like you, then he'll be better than before. Tsu. Karo, if I was there, if I hadn't said yes to living in the dorms, I could have been there for him. She started crying hard. Izuku could feel the wet spots growing on his shirt, and he hugged her tighter. Izuku. It's not your fault, It never was, and it never will be. You didn't know this would happen, no one did, and I highly doubt your parents would blame you either. Tsu. How do you know? Karo. Izuku chuckled. Izuku. Because they raised you. You're one of the kindest people I know. If they were bad parents, you probably wouldn't be the Tsu I know today. She looked up at him, tears in her eyes. He saw them, once again free of worthlessness, and he smiled. He led her over to a seat and had her sit down. He sat next to her. She leaned on his shoulder and fell asleep, still worried for her brother, but free of guilt. 3 hours later, the train stopped at the station they wanted. The car had since been filled with people heading home from work. Izuku woke Tsu up, telling her it was their stop, and they got off. Since Tsu had evidently forgotten her phone, Izuku lent her his to call her parents. He couldn't hear the other end, but got the gist from her side. Tsu. Hi Dad, yes I'm on my way, how is he? Karo. Tsu. Stable? Thank God. Tsu. Oh. That? I left my phone in my dorm room, I'm using a friend's, they're here with me. Tsu. I've never brought them home, you've definitely seen him. Tsu. Yes, it's a boy. Karo. No, definitely not. Tsu. Dad, he's a good guy, definitely a better friend too. You'll like him. We're almost there, see you in a bit. Bye, love you too. Karo. She handed him his phone back. Izuku. So he's okay for now? Tsu. Yeah, let's hope it stays that way. My parents are also excited to meet you. Izuku. First impressions during your friend's family emergency. No pressure, Izuku, no pressure at all. Tsu let out a small giggle. They walked up to the entrance of the hospital, walked inside, and up to the front desk. After checking in, they went to the floor Samida was on, and walked over to his door. Tsu looked nervous, so Izuku knocked for her instead. When the door opened, Tsu's father, Ganma, was on the other side. He stepped aside to let them in. When they looked at the bed, Samida's legs were elevated in casts, he had bandages over his chest, and some around his head, though his eyes weren't covered. He was awake, and his eyes widened when the two walked in. Samida. Big sis, you came, who's the loser? Tsu. Of course I came. Karo, and he's my friend, a very good one at that. Izuku. It's fine, you don't have to defend me, Tsu, my hero name is basically loser anyway. Tsu. I thought you were using it as you can do it, Karo. Izuku. Both. I'll use it to show everyone who doubted me I can do anything, and show the world even a loser like me can be a hero. Just then Tsu's mother Belle spoke up. Belle. Karo, that's cute, what is the name exactly? Izuku. Thank you, it's Deku, ma'am. Ganma. Now I recognize you, boy. You're the kid who broke his limbs to fight that fire and ice boy. Izuku nodded. Ganma put a hand on his shoulder. Ganma. You're a good kid, Midoriya, keep Tsu safe for us. Izuku. You can count on me, sir. Samida. Ahem. Sorry for the loser comment. Why are you here? Izuku. Oh. Tsu forgot her phone, so I came along. The boy nodded. Just then Izuku felt a tug on his pants, and when he looked down, he saw Tsu's sister, Satsuki. Satsuki. Are you and Sissy boyfriend and girlfriend? Izuku and Tsu went beet red at the question, causing everyone else to start laughing, while Satsuki looked confused. Belle. No, they aren't, Satsuki. Just friends. Karo. The two students spent a few more hours at the hospital, but had to leave when Aizawa messaged Izuku to come back. Just before they walked inside, Tsu stopped Midoriya. Tsu. Midoriya. Izuku. Yeah, Tsu? Tsu. Thank you for helping me on the train. Izuku. You don't need to thank me. Tsu. Well, I want to, okay? Now close your eyes. Izuku. Okay? He closed his eyes, and then felt something go around his neck. Tsu. Open them. When he did, he looked down to see a necklace. He held it up and saw it was made of small green beads. On the bottom was a small plastic frog, and a small plastic piece of broccoli. Tsu. I made it the other day. Karo, a token of my appreciation for your help. Izuku hugged her. Izuku, thank you, Tsu. They separated and went inside, unaware of the brown-haired girl getting a drink in the dark, who saw the whole thing. Mama Midoriya. It had been a few days since Samidare had been sent to the hospital. Izuku wore the necklace Tsu gave him underneath his uniform. It made him feel better about himself, knowing he was able to help someone, but something had been bothering him. Uraraka was distant ever since he and Tsu came back. She even stopped showing up at lunch, preferring to sit by herself. One day Izuku walked over to the table she was at and sat down. Izuku. Uraraka. What's going on? We're all worried about you. Uraraka. I don't feel like talking to you guys right now, Midoriya. Izuku looked surprised. She had always called him Deku ever since their first day at UA. Izuku. Did I do something wrong? You're my best friend, what can I do to help? Uraraka. Nothing. Just go back and hang out with Tsu and the others some more. Izuku realized why she was upset. Izuku. Okay. I see what's going on. You think that me and Tsu being close means we're in a relationship. We're not okay? I promise. Uraraka. Then why did she give you a necklace? And the hugs you two keep giving each other? Izuku. The necklace, it's a thank you gift, okay? I promised I wouldn't tell anyone why though, that includes you. The hugs are a part of the same reason. Uraraka. This secret is so important that neither of you told your best friend? Izuku nodded. Izuku. We don't mean to hurt your feelings, but all this is extremely personal to both me and Tsu. I'm sorry, but until she says so, you can't know. She started to tear up. Uraraka. Deku, I'm sorry. I jumped to conclusions and worried you all. Izuku. It's fine, now let's go back. They stood up and walked back over to their original table with their friends. Lunch was much more lively for the group than it had been in days. Later, Izuku was sitting in his dorm room when he heard a knock. He got up to answer it, and it was Tsu. He let her in and she sat on his bed. Tsu. Karo, what happened with Achiko? He took off the necklace and hung it on a hook next to his closet. Izuku. She saw you give me the necklace, and a few of our hugs apparently. That made her think we were dating. He thought he saw Tsu's cheeks light up a little, but it was gone after he blinked. Tsu. Oh. Well, that would have been awkward if we were. Karo. Izuku chuckled. Izuku. Yeah, it would have been. Anyway, how's Samidare? Tsu. He's doing well. He can leave the hospital next week, though he'll be in a wheelchair for a few months while he heals and goes to physical therapy. Karo. Izuku. That's good. Tsu, I met your parents. Would you like to meet my mom? Tsu lit up at the suggestion, excitement filling her eyes. Tsu. Sure, what about your dad? Izuku's smile turned into a small frown. Izuku. Haven't seen him since I was 3. Mom says he just works overseas and sends us money, but the multiple jobs she took don't fool me anymore. Tsu. Oh. I'm sorry for bringing it up. Izuku waved it off. Izuku. It's fine. Not exactly a secret, just no one's asked yet. Tsu. Phew. Karo, when are we going? Izuku picked the necklace back up and put it on, then he grabbed her wrist and pulled her up. Izuku. How about right now? Aizawa already said yes when I asked. He pulled her out of his room and out of the dorm building. He called his mom, letting her know he was bringing a friend over. After an hour they had made it to the Midoriya apartment. Izuku walked up to the door and knocked loudly. Footsteps could be heard and Inko Midoriya opened the door. She hugged Izuku as soon as she saw him. Inko. Oh my baby boy, I'm so glad you decided to stop by. Izuku. It's nice to see you too, Mom. She let him go, and he motioned towards Tsu. Izuku. This is my friend, Tsuyu Asui. Tsu. It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Midoriya. Please call me Tsu. Inko. Oh, so polite, and so cute, please call me Inko. Come in. I'm making dinner, it's almost done. They walked inside and sat at a table while Inko finished cooking. Tsu. Your mom's nice, Midoriya. Karo. Izuku. She was one of the only people who cared for me. The only others being Kaken's parents and an old middle school teacher. Tsu nodded. After a few minutes, Inko came out with 3 bowls of homemade katsudon. Tsu. It smells amazing, Inko Karo. Inko. Thank you. I had to get good at making katsudon. It's Izuku's favorite, of course. I love your hair, by the way. The bow near the bottom is cute. Tsu. Thanks, my mom taught me how to do it, though it took a while to grow my hair long enough. They enjoyed the katsudon dinner and stayed for a while longer. Inko even pulled out old pictures of Izuku as a kid. He tried to stop her, but Tsu was able to stop him. They made it back to the dorms a little before curfew and got to their rooms. Exam. Izuku. This isn't good. He and the rest of his class had just been separated. The attack from the other schools did massive damage to the ground and even flung a few students over to different areas. Izuku. At least it's just an exam. We'd be dead if this was an actual villain attack. Izuku was running away from the open space the attack happened and towards the city area. As he was running, he noticed Tsu, Jairu, Yayorozu, and Shoji enter a building, so he followed. He reached the floor they had stopped at and walked inside, almost taking a jack to the eye. Jairu. Oh, it's just you, Midoriya. What are you doing here? Izuku. I was running from the attack, saw you guys come in here, and followed. As he walked further in, the door slammed shut, and the sound of welding could be heard. Izuku walked over to it and attempted to push it. Izuku. As I feared. We've walked into a trap. He heard a yelp of pain and the sound of a gunshot. When he turned around, one of Shoji's hands had been shot off, and the window was too cracked to see through. Then Jairu screamed in pain as a vibration was felt through the floor. Izuku. Damn it! They know our weaknesses. He was trying to think of something when he remembered Tsu was there. Izuku yelling. Jairoza sealed the vents. Before she could do anything, the vents started blasting cold air, and too hard for Yayorozu to get anything on them. Tsu quietly. So sleepy. Karo. Izuku. We need a blanket for Tsu. Shoji, can you carry her? Shoji. Of course, Midoriya. Yayorozu made a blanket for the frog girl and Shoji wrapped her up and put her on his back. Suddenly a voice could be heard from the other side of the door. Loudly. If you can hear me, surrender now, none of you can escape, and don't even try anything, Midoriya. You need your bones for the rest of the exam anyway, so it'd be pointless to try. Izuku loudly. I've gotten stronger from then. He entered full cowling, backed up, and charged the door, hitting it with a kick that snapped the welds. He wasted no time and jumped around the stairwell, quickly taking care of the students. The rest of the group walked out of the room and started tagging the group. There was enough there for all 5 of them, though Tsu passed out from the cold just after she tagged the last target. When she woke up, she was sat at a wall, and Izuku and Uraraka were sitting next to her. Izuku had decided to take a small nap and Uraraka was on the phone. Just then Izuku started to tip towards Uraraka, and something happened in Tsu. She felt something, whether it was jealousy or something else, she didn't know, but whatever it was, it caused her to quickly use her tongue to pull the sleeping boy over to her shoulder instead of Uraraka's. She could have sworn she saw his eyes flutter a little and small grin form, but she brushed it off as hibernation hallucinations. When the girl got off the phone, she turned around to see Izuku on Tsu's shoulder. Uraraka. Hey Tsu, why is Deku on your shoulder? Tsu. He fell. Karo, and I don't want to wake him up. Izuku woke up after a few more minutes, the two now getting suspicious stares from Uraraka. Not the full-on jealous glares from earlier that week, but still like she was putting together pieces of a puzzle about the two they didn't even know existed. But that was quickly brushed away as the next part of the exam started. He had passed. Izuku was looking at his provisional license, holding it like it was as fragile as glass, careful not to drop or dirty it. He quickly sent pictures of it to Inko and All Might. He noticed Tsu a little away from the group and walked over to her. Izuku. Hey Tsu. What's wrong? Tsu. I didn't do much. I don't deserve to have this. Karo, if it wasn't for you I wouldn't have passed the first part. He saw tears start to well up in her eyes and gave her a hug. Izuku. No, you deserve to have that license. All of us were at a disadvantage in there. I'm pretty sure you did better than me in the second part. I only got to one person and messed up what to say, causing points to get taken away. They pulled away and Tsu looked him in the eyes. Izuku searched them and found no trace of the look, but he did find something else, something alluring. He couldn't place his finger on what it was, but he couldn't look away. Tsu was in a similar state, getting lost in his forest green eyes. They snapped out of this trance after a few seconds and looked away from each other, both glowing red. Izuku. We should go. Tsu. Kara, why yeah? Maybe you could come to my room to hang out later? Izuku. Sure, Tsu. As they walked over to the bus, several amounts of money were being passed around, clearly paying off bets made on something. The bus ride was quiet, mostly because they were all tired, and cautious not to set off Bakugo, who didn't pass. Feelings. Izuku was walking towards Tsu's room, remembering their last interaction. He didn't want to look away and he could tell she didn't want to either. He also remembered when she used her tongue to alter his fall, he would rest on her shoulder. He liked it, so he pretended to stay asleep. He knocked on her door as he reached it, determined to figure out what he was feeling. When she opened the door, he had to look away to stop himself from getting lost again. Izuku. Hey Tsu. Can I come in? She giggled. Tsu. Of course, Midoriya. Karo. She stepped aside, letting him in. Instead of sitting on her bed like usual, he walked to her desk to sit on her chair. She sat on her bed and they started talking. After a while, Izuku started to remember the start of the year, and how they had only gotten close recently. Izuku. I remember back at the start of the year, I was so nervous around everyone. Tsu. Yeah, you were, Midoriya. Even around Ida and Achiko. Izuku. Can I tell you something, Tsu? Tsu. Of course you can. Karo, after helping me, I'll always be willing to listen to you. He chuckled. Izuku. I'll keep that in mind. Anyway, back at the USJ, I had actually wanted to get to know you better, but for some reason, we were always separated. Like Uraraka would need my help to study and Jairo would drag you off so Yaoyorozu could do your nails. Tsu. Oh, I didn't know. It was kind of the same with me, we just didn't have the time because of our friends. Karo. Izuku. Tsu. Just call me Izuku. After everything, you get to call me that. Tsu. What about Achiko? Izuku. She's my best friend, but if she can't see why I'm letting you, then she'll have to suck it up and either stay or go. Tsu felt oddly happy at his determined preference of her over Uraraka. Tsu. Okay, I will, Izuku. They sat there in silence until Izuku got up and sat next to her on the bed. Izuku. I was awake, you know. Tsu. Awake for what? Karo. Izuku. When I was sleeping earlier and I fell, the fall woke me up, but you stopped it and pulled me to your shoulder. He saw Tsu go red. Tsu. Oh. Right. I just didn't want Achiko to get the wrong idea. She was on your other side. Izuku. It's fine, I liked it. Leaning on you, it felt nice too. To emphasize his point, he leaned on her again, his head resting on her shoulder. Tsu. Well, if this is where we're going, then I think I have something to say. Karo. Izuku. Then say it, Tsu. Aren't you the one who always speaks her mind? She nodded. Tsu. Earlier, before we left, when we made eye contact. I don't know what happened in my mind, but I just couldn't look away. I didn't want to either. What about you? Karo, what did you feel, Izuku? Izuku. When I looked in your eyes, I was looking for the look. But I couldn't find it. Instead, I saw something else, something I've never seen before, and I just couldn't look away, not even if I wanted to, Tsu. She gently pushed him off of her, making him sit upright, and they both looked at each other. They locked eyes once again, this time with no intention of stopping at all. Izuku saw that shine again, the one he couldn't identify, so he flashed OFA through his brain to try and boost his thought process. Tsu looked in his dark green eyes, only this time they seemed to start glowing a bright emerald, as if he was fascinated in her eyes too. No matter what he did, he couldn't figure the shine out, so he stopped his quirk. He slowly raised his arms, gripping her shoulders, not tightly, but she wouldn't shake him off anyway. She looped her arms around his neck gently, yet demanding he not move. They closed their eyes and moved their faces closer and closer until they met, soft lips, pushing against each other with little pressure. Fireworks were going off in their minds. It felt so soft, so moist, so warm, so right. It felt like an eternity, but in reality was only a few seconds. But even then they both felt it was too short. They went in for a second time, just as euphoric as the first, but longer. This time the only reason they separated was for air. They backed their faces up, gasping for air, their eyes pleading for more time. They stayed like that, eyes locked, mouths open, studying each other's expressions for a few seconds. Izuku. Tsu? Tsu. Yes, Izuku? Izuku. Do you think we could go out? Tsu. I'd love that. Karo, but first. She lunged at his face with hers, latching their lips together for a third kiss. When she separated, he brought a hand up to her face and started rubbing with his thumb. He looked over to the clock and seeing it was past curfew. Izuku. Do you think I could stay here tonight? I'll sleep on the floor if you need me to. Instead of answering, she pulled him down and pulled the covers over the two of them before snuggling up to him. After wrapping her arms around him and nuzzling her face into his chest, she spoke. Tsu. Good night, Izuku. Izuku. Good night, Tsu. He wrapped his arms around her, and they both fell asleep. Confrontation. Izuku woke up to an unfamiliar alarm. When he opened his eyes and saw the room he was in, he remembered what happened the previous night. He looked down and saw Tsu, also stirring from her sleep. When she woke up, she looked up at him, and they locked eyes once again. Izuku pulled her up so they were face to face and gave he a gentle kiss. Izuku. Good morning, beautiful. She let out a soft giggle. Tsu. Good morning to you too, handsome. We need to get ready for class. Karo. He nodded and they got up, then he realized something. Izuku. How am I gonna get back to my room? I can't go through your door and risk being seen in the hall, and I can't jump across balconies or I will be seen and called a creep. Tsu. You'll be fine. I'm always the first one out, so if you hurry you should make it. Karo. She gave him a small kiss on the cheek. Tsu. Good luck, Izuku. He nodded and opened the door, to find both Jairu and Yaoyorozu standing there, about to knock. He slammed the door, not locking it, and walked over to Tsu. Izuku. Jairu and Yaoyorozu are both at the door, and definitely saw me. Tsu sighed as they opened it, and walked inside. Jairu. So I wasn't hallucinating, Midoriya really isn't here. Yaoyorozu. Why is he here, Tsu? Both green-haired teens started stammering and talking over each other, trying to come up with a good excuse, though they could tell the other two weren't convinced. They looked at each other, into their eyes, and saw the willingness to tell them inside. Izuku. Well, the truth is. Tsu. We're together. Karo, it happened last night. Yaoyorozu. But I thought you liked Uraraka, Midoriya. Izuku. I don't, not like that. She's my best friend. I'm just waiting for her to confess so I can let her down easy. Just then another voice was heard from the doorway. Uraraka. Well, now you don't have to, Midoriya. I heard everything. I just want to know why you didn't tell me sooner. Please. Izuku walked over to the brown-haired girl who was on the verge of tears. Izuku. Because I was scared, Uraraka. You were the first person in years who showed any interest in being my friend. I didn't want to flat-out reject you because I didn't want to lose you. I'm sorry, I truly am, but know you will always be my best friend. You made me think better of myself. You turned a lifelong insult into a complimentary nickname in just one sentence, and I'll be forever grateful. He hugged her tight, showing his desperation to keep her close. Tsu walked over and placed her hands on their shoulders. Tsu. I'm sorry as well, Achiko. I knew you liked him, but he was the only one to notice something was wrong with me. Karowell Bakugo did too, but he just trusted Izuku to help. I'm still not comfortable talking about it though, but I promise you will be the first to know. Izuku separated from Uraraka and let Tsu hug her independently. Uraraka had started to cry but calmed down quickly. Uraraka. Okay. I understand. I hope both of you are happy, Deku. Izuku. If it's any consolation, I think Tokoyami has a small interest in you. I'd say he's a better choice than me, but that's just me. She chuckled a little. Uraraka. I'll see. But seriously, I hope you two are happy. Now hurry up, class starts in half an hour. Izuku's eyes widened as he quickly gave Tsu a kiss and rushed to his room, green lightning trailing behind him. When he got there, he decided to call All Might. All Might. Yes, young Midoriya? What is it? Izuku. I just wanted to ask, am I allowed to tell people I absolutely trust and know can handle themselves? All Might. Ofe is yours now, young Midoriya. I lost the right to tell you what to do at all once I used up the last of the embers. It's your call, though if you need help telling someone, I'll always be willing to help. Now hurry, half an hour till class. All Might hung up to let Izuku get ready for school. As he was putting his uniform on, he was wondering how he'd explain his quirk to Tsu. Secrets revealed. Izuku was the last one in the classroom. He looked at the time to see there was still a couple minutes before class started, so he sat down and wrote a quick note before walking over to give it to Tsu. She took it and he walked back to his seat. She then read it. Izuku, meet me in Council Room 3 with All Might during lunch. There's something I need to tell you. She looked at him and nodded before putting the note away as Aizawa walked into class. He just gave them a few announcements such as what different Gen Ed clubs were doing and that the support course wanted a few students to help test gear. The bell rang and Ectoplasm left the room with the students right behind him, hungry and impatient. Instead of heading towards the cafeteria, Izuku and Tsu went towards the stairs to head up to the council rooms. They were usually just used by teachers to relax since not much happened at UA, so the hallway was empty. Izuku walked up to the room marked 3 and knocked. All Might. Come in, young Midoriya, young Asui. Izuku opened the door and led Tsu to the couch opposite the retired symbol of peace. All Might. Young Midoriya, there's no going back. You're 100% sure you're ready for this? Izuku looked at Tsu, then back at All Might, and nodded. All Might. All right then. You should start. I'll fill in where you fall short. Tsu. What's this all about? Karo Izuku, what is this? Izuku. It's about my quirk, Tsu. Tsu. It's called superpower. And lets you charge your body with built-up energy, right? Izuku. Only part of that is true. The true name of my quirk is One for All. It's really 2 quirks mashed into one, sort of like Todoroki's except more direct. Tsu. What are they then? Karo. Izuku. The one that gives me my strength is a basic stockpile quirk that gets stronger over time but very slowly. The other lets the user pass it on, a quirk so useless the original user didn't know it even existed until the stockpile quirk was forced on him, and they merged to create One for All. Tsu. Kind of like the all-for-one guy who led the league, right? Izuku. Actually, the man who had the quirk to pass on his quirk was AFO's brother. He despised his brother's tyranny and fought against him until AFO forced the stockpile power into his younger brother. Since that day over a century ago, this power has been passed on from user to user before finding its way to me, the 9th holder. Tsu looked at him in amazement, and he could see her connecting dots in her mind. Tsu. So you were always quirkless? Karo. Izuku nodded sadly. Izuku. I understand if you think less of me now. Relying on a borrowed power rather than my own ability. He felt her kiss his cheek. Tsu. I think that's amazing. Even with the world stacked against you, you never gave up and even caught the eye of whoever the 8th user was. All Might. Ahem. That's where I come in. I was the 8th user of One for All. That's why I've been playing favorites with young Midoriya. Tsu looked at the man, finally putting the last pieces together. Tsu. That's why you're powerless, you were quirkless too, and once you passed it on you only had scraps left. Karo. All Might. Right on the money, young Asui. Now that you know, can we trust you to not tell anyone? Tsu. You can count on me. All Might nodded as he bent down and pulled out 2 paper bags. He reached inside and pulled out food. All Might. Hope you like burgers. Now eat, you don't have much time left. Izuku and Tsu could be seen leaning on each other in the common space of the dorm. Tsu suddenly moved her head to talk to him. Tsu. Hey Izuku. I'm ready to tell the class about my feelings. Karo, I think I'm finally over them, and with you here, I doubt they'll come back. She felt his hand grasp hers. Izuku. Okay then. Text Uraraka and tell her to get down here, tell her why too. Tsu nodded and messaged their best friend. Uraraka was downstairs in seconds and sat next to them. Uraraka. I can know now. They nodded and Tsu started talking. Tsu. It was back at the hospital when it started really. When I warned everyone about breaking the law, I felt sad that I didn't stop them. Karo, but you already know that. What you don't know is that, when I started crying, I didn't get everything out, only Izuku saw that. I felt worthless, like my friendships with everyone meant nothing because of how easily my words were pushed aside. Karo, Izuku came to my room that night and let me get everything else out. Uraraka. I'm so sorry, Tsu. Deku, how'd you know? Izuku. I won't go into too many details, but 11 years of bullying doesn't just not affect you. I felt the same way as Tsu did for many years. I grew to recognize the dull, pleading look someone gets in their eyes when they feel worthless. She nodded, wanting to know more, but also not wanting to pry. Tsu. I'm going to tell everyone later, but I remembered my promise to you, Achiko. Karo. Uraraka hugged her. Uraraka. Thank you. You two really are perfect together. And thanks for the tip with Tokoyami Deku. I think it has potential. Izuku. Happy to help. Uraraka got up and left, leaving the couple to their own devices. Christmas special. Izuku woke up to a sight he'd grown familiar to in the past few weeks. Tsu curled up next to him, arms latched around him, sleeping comfortably with his body heat. Ever since the cold weather started, they had been nearly inseparable, Izuku loving her constant closeness, and Tsu now having a consistent heat source for winter, and the fact he's her boyfriend. He shook her awake and reminded her of what day it was, which got her up faster. They changed, separately, into nice warm sweaters and Izuku wrapped a scarf around her neck. They joined their classmates downstairs and ate a delicious breakfast that even Aizawa joined in on. Just after breakfast they heard a door open and in walked Togata with Eri, dressed in a Santa suit. Izuku walked over and picked her up, carrying the small girl over to the couch. The class started a gift exchange, attaching each present to a piece of Ciro's tape. Even Eri got one. When they pulled, Izuku got the Merkle body pillow Mineta bought, which was quickly thrown across the room. Tsu got the small All Might keychain Izuku bought, and Eri got Tokoyami's sword. Once the gift exchange was over, everyone left to go spend time with family. Izuku and Tsu went to his mother's apartment to pick her up before going to Tsu's house. When they knocked, Inko ran outside and hugged the two tightly before they all went back to the train station to get to the city Tsu's family lived in. Tsu knocked on the door and her mother, Belle Ajui, answered the door. She greeted all three as they walked inside of the well-heated house. They took off their coats, though Tsu refused to take the scarf off, due to Izuku putting it on himself. Samidare and Satsuki ran over to them, excited that Tsu and Izuku were there. Ganma walked over and shook Inko's hand. Their more gifts were given out. Izuku had messaged Belle and Ganma about presents so they could get something for Inko too. Inko was delighted by the green bag the Azuis bought for her. Izuku was given a limited edition All Might Christmas-themed jacket, one that Izuku had missed. For Samidare he was able to get Hatsum a rechargeable barrier generator with a card that said for the next truck, which got a few laughs. He got Satsuki a doll set he was told she wanted. He gave Belle and Ganma matching pajamas. And finally, he gave Tsu a necklace, similar to the one she gave him earlier in the year. Nothing special was added to it other than the frog and broccoli having their names on them. She gave him a big hug and a quick kiss. He then revealed he was wearing his the whole time, and they took a picture of them wearing both. They all had dinner shortly afterwards, chatting and laughing the whole time while eating. Tsu and Izuku looked at each other, seeing happiness, love, and cheerfulness in their eyes. Izuku and Inko stayed a while longer before leaving to go to the apartment once more. The family saw the two out the door and Tsu and Izuku shared one last kiss before he and Inko left. Once they arrived, they both headed straight to bed after bidding each other a good night. Izuku heard his phone vibrate and checked the text Tsu sent him. It was a video of Samidare turning on the barrier generator and taunting the family to throw things at him. Tsu, he loves it, Izu. Izuku, I'm glad he does too. Tsu, everyone loves the presents you got us. I know I adore mine. Good night, Izu, I love you. Izuku, good night, I love you too, Tsu. They both set their phones down, letting sleep overtake them. Telling the class. Later that day, after the class has finished eating their dinner, Uraraka and Izuku brought them all to the couches in the common space. Once everyone was seated, Izuku got up, stood next to Tsu, who was standing in front of everyone, and gave her a confidence-boosting smile. Yayorozu. What's going on, you two? Bakugo. I know. You got this frog legs. Kaminari. What? What's going on, Bakugo? Ashido. Yeah, boom boy, tell us. Bakugo, yelling. Shut up already, it's something personal to her, so she should say it. That got the class to quiet down, and Bakugo sent a nod towards the couple. Tsu. Well, Karo, you guys see, back at the hospital, when the plan to rescue Bakugo was discussed, I thought I stopped the ones who went from going and doing anything rash. But that's something you all already know. Karo, to those of you who did go, I thank you for your apologies and comfort, but you almost ended up doing more damage. Kirishima. What? How? Tsu. When I started crying, I hadn't gotten my true feelings out, and you guys hugging me made me cry more, knowing you still semi-cared for me. But those feelings that were still trapped could have built up inside me and caused me to lash out or shut myself off. Karo. Ida. Then what happened to them, Tsu? It is not healthy to keep things like that bottled up. Tsu reached down and gripped Izuku's hand. Tsu. Iza happened. He alone noticed the feelings still left, and that night he came to my room. He let me get them out. Todoroki. What were these feelings you keep mentioning, Tsu? Tsu. Worthlessness, self-loathing, others I can't even place, those were the feelings I felt. Karo, when I found out you guys went, even when I warned you, I felt pushed aside, like I didn't matter to anyone I saw as my friends. But thankfully, Iza here kept me going, sharing some of his never-give-up personality when I needed a boost. Karo, please don't cry or apologize, you already did and I've already forgiven you. The class all nodded, then Hagakure spoke up. Hagakure. Why'd you call him Izu? Izuku. Oh, that's simple, it's because we're She pulled him down to her level and kissed him. Izuku. Teeing. The rest of the class started congratulating them, and some had questions. Ida could be seen walking over to Uraraka, a concerned look on his face. Ida. Uraraka, are you okay? I know you really liked him. She nodded. Uraraka. Yeah, I am. They're happy, we're still friends, and Deku even pointed me towards Tokoemi. Ida. Good, as long as we're all happy. A few hours later, the class had all gone up to their rooms. Izuku, Tsu, and Bakugo were the last to go. As Izuku and Tsu were about to get up, Bakugo made them sit back down. Bakugo. We need to talk, you two, well, mainly me and Deku, but you should hear this too, frog legs. Izuku. What is it, Kaken? Bakugo got on his knees and bowed in front of Izuku. Bakugo. I'm sorry. He sat back up and looked Izuku in the eyes. Bakugo. I know sorry won't cut it, but it's all I can say. I made your life a living hell for most of our lives. It took failing the exam to see just how deluded I was. Tsu sat there, putting the pieces together. Tsu. Wait, you were the one who bullied Izu? Karo, the one who gave him the look that I had? How could you ask forgiveness from him? Bakugo. I'm not just apologizing for something I can't take back or fix. I would never dream. Oh. Izuku. I forgive you. The other two looked at the green-haired boy, confusion clear as day on their faces. TNBE yelling. What? Tsu. Why? How? I mean, he's him. Bakugo. Yeah, I agree with her. What the buck, Deku? I'm grateful, but still. Izuku. Your head was filled with thoughts of godliness and being unstoppable from our teachers and classmates. While yes, they were your actions, they were made possible by irresponsible adults and immature children. Yes, Shigaraki attacked the USJ, but that was only because AFO said he could kill All Might. Bakugo. Terrible comparison. Izuku. I know. But my point stands. It wasn't completely your fault, Kaken, so I forgive you. Now it's getting late and Mr. Aizawa's gonna yell at us if we don't go now, so good night. With that, Izuku got up and walked to his room, leaving a bewildered Tsu and Bakugo there. Aizawa. You too, curfew. Now. TNB. Yes, sir. Karo/I know. They went upstairs, Tsu entering Izuku's room and crawling into bed by his side. After the raid. Tsu was at the bottom of the hole. She was currently holding on to Sir Night-Eye, who was missing an arm and had a stone spike through his abdomen. The raid had seemingly gone without a hitch, but there were losses. She could tell Sir Night-Eye wasn't going to live, nothing could save him, only prolong his death, and Mirio Togata, or Lemillion, had lost his quirk to one of the Shy Hasaikai's delete-arounds. Uraraka had just gone up with Aizawa as the sounds of Izuku fighting overhaul died down. Ryukyu. Froppy, climb onto my back with sir, I'll fly you two up. Tsu. Okay. Karo. She grabbed Sir Night-Eye and jumped onto Ryukyu's back. Ryukyu spread her wings and started flapping, flying Tsu and Night-Eye to the surface. They got up top. Tsu noticed Izuku unconscious with Eri tied to his back. She also noticed Aizawa deactivate his quirk, telling her that Eri's quirk was dangerous in some way. She hopped off of Ryukyu and carried Night-Eye over to a medical tent. A paramedic rushed over. Tsu. Karo, he's hurt bad. I've stopped as much bleeding as I could, but I don't think he'll make it. Paramedic. We'll do our best. Thank you for what you've done so far. The paramedic pulled over a stretcher and helped Tsu put Night-Eye on it. He then took off towards an ambulance. Now that Night-Eye was taken care of, she could worry about Izuku. She walked over to Aizawa to ask what happened. Aizawa. Eri's quirk can rewind things, so he tied her to him and went full power while it was active. It rewound his broken bones, but its power ramped up, causing him to not be able to keep up with it. She looks exhausted while I think he passed out from pain. Tsu. At least they're both alive. The man nodded and fell asleep, exhausted from earlier fights and Chrono's hour hand. Izuku awoke a few hours later. He looked down to find Tsu sleeping on the right side of his bed. He looked to his left to find his mother, who looked relieved he woke up. Inko. Oh Izuku, I'm glad you woke up. Izuku. Mom, I was fine, just knocked out. Inko. That doesn't stop me from worrying. Their conversation woke up Tsu, who looked equally as relieved he was up. She jumped on top of him and gave him a hug. Tsu. Izukaro, I'm so happy you're awake. They shared a quick kiss and looked into each other's eyes, feeling glad they were both okay. Inko. Ahem. Tsu got off of Izuku, embarrassed. Inko. Why didn't you tell me Tsu was your girlfriend when she came over? Izuku. Because we weren't dating then. Inko. Oh? When did you start? Tsu. A few hours after the Provisional licensing exam. Karo, we had realized our feelings during the exam but only got to talk after. Inko started gushing over Izuku getting a girlfriend after so long and kept asking questions. Eventually she came to her biggest. Inko. So when are grandchildren gonna be in the picture? This made both Izuku and Tsu go beet red. Izuku and Mom. Inko. What? You already said you sleep together. Tsu. Jay, just sleep, nothing more. Inko. Oh, sorry. They kept talking until a doctor came in, saying Izuku could leave. As they were leaving, Izuku was told that Night-Eye had passed away while he was unconscious. That made him tear up, but he collected himself as they went to see Eri. Aizawa was already there, a bandage around his head. Aizawa. About time you woke up. She's being taken care of. The hospital was told of her situation and are only medicating her through her food. No syringes, scalpels, or other sharp and pointy objects. They talked for a few minutes before they left. Inko drove both students back to UA, giving Izuku a hug as they walked towards their dorm building. Instead of going through the front door, they went around back and jumped up to Tsu's room. They laid down on her bed, cuddling with each other. Eventually Izuku spoke up. Izuku, do you think Eri's gonna be okay? If she gets put into the system, that could break her even more. Tsu looked up at him from his chest. Tsu, Karo, if I know you as well as I think I do, you won't let that happen. But what could you do? Izuku, either getting my mom or a teacher here at UA to adopt her, that or I do it myself. But if I do, then you'd be like a mom, and I don't want to put you through that. Tsu pulled herself up and gave him a kiss on the cheek. Tsu, Izu, I'd love to be a mom. Yes, it's admittedly very early, but by adopting her we also wouldn't have to worry about and teenage pregnancy issues. Karo. Izuku, you sure, Tsu? Tsu, yes, Izuku, I am. Izuku, I'll talk to Principal Nizu about it tomorrow then. For now, I'm tired. Tsu, but it's only 6 in the afternoon, you haven't eaten since breakfast. Karo. Izuku, well, I'm too comfy right now, and I just want to cuddle and sleep with my cute froggy girlfriend. She blushed and nodded, getting comfy once again, both falling asleep soon after. Nizu's approval. The next morning, Izuku awoke to find himself still inside Tsu's room. He looked down to find her still asleep and breathing lightly. He shook her gently, rousing her from sleep, and smiled as she slowly opened her eyes. He grabbed her shoulders and brought her face near his. Izuku, good morning. Tsu, yawn, good morning, Izu. Karo. He gave her a light kiss before sitting up. Izuku, we need to get ready. Tsu, but today's a free day. Izuku, but we still need to talk to Nizu about Eri. Hearing this, Tsu quickly got up and walked over to her dresser, getting out clothes. Izuku, I'm gonna go to my room now. He got up and left so Tsu could change and went to his room, careful not to be spotted. He and Tsu knew the other work-study students who were at the raid had been interrogated already, and weren't looking forward to their turns. After he changed, he jumped off his balcony and landed on the ground. He heard Tsu walk over. He grabbed her hand and they walked towards the main building. Nizu heard a knock on his office door. Not expecting anyone at the time, he checked the camera to find it was 2 students, Midoriya and Asui. Nizu, come in. With that, the 2 walked inside and made their way to Nizu's desk, sitting in the chairs in front of it. Nizu, to which do I owe this visit, Mr. Midoriya, Mississippi Asui? Izuku, it's about the girl from the Shai Hasaikai raid, Eri. Nizu, oh, her, what's wrong? Izuku, you see, Nizu, sir, I'm worried that she'll be put into the system, which isn't exactly known for its good choices for parents. Combining the trauma she already has and the trauma she could gain from the system, I don't think she'd be able to handle it, sir. Nizu, I see, many others have already voiced that very same opinion. But what would your solution be? Izuku, during the fight, she seemed to like me and Togata. Maybe if she was adopted by someone one or both of us trust, she would be okay. Nizu brought his paw to his chin, thinking for a moment before looking Izuku in the eyes, studying him. He then switched to Tsu. He spoke again after a minute OD studying both students. Nizu, if it was anyone but the 2 of you, 2 students from the famously reckless Class 1A, I'd take that sentiment at face value. But it's clear that even now, you're prepared to go above and beyond. Look me in my eyes and tell me you wouldn't put yourselves on the list of possible parents. Both Izuku's and Tsu's faces went red and unconsciously avoided looking in his eyes. Both had also tried to speak, but realizing they were caught, they gave up. Tsu, you're right as always, sir. Karo. Nizu laughed a little but quickly composed himself. Nizu, you have nothing to fear or be ashamed of. I knew this would be a possibility before you even walked through the door. While yes, it's a completely irresponsible concept, your class has made that their trademark, and even then you come out on top, which is why I will allow this. You 2 are star students, your class values your advice. One of you is one of the most responsible in the class, the other is the most reckless. In my opinion, you 2 are the perfect balance in your class. Izuku, what do you mean, sir? Nizu, I believe you 2 would make wonderful parents. I know for a fact you 2 will find a way to balance school, your relationship, personal lives, and Eri. If I had the papers, I'd personally have you two fill them out here and now. Come back tomorrow and they should be here. For now, though, I suggest moving your things out of your rooms. INT. Why? Nizu. So you can move. Of course, no one lives on the female side of the second floor. Cementos will combine those 4 rooms into one big one, all for you two and Eri. Izuku. Thank you so much, sir, but why? Nizu. I'd like to see where this goes. Just don't cause any teenage pregnancy scandals and we're even. They quickly nodded and started walking back to the dorms. About halfway there, Izuku stopped, so Tsu turned to him. Tsu. What's wrong? Karo. Izuku. How are we gonna explain this to our parents? Oh god, mom's gonna freak, she's gonna flood again. Yours don't even know we're dating. She walked up to him and grabbed both of his hands. Tsu. I'm sure it'll be fine, Izuku, we're gonna get through this together. He rested his forehead on hers. Izuku. Yeah, you're right, we will, Tsu. They kissed and Tsu started dragging him to the dorms. Tsu. Carol, we might as well do as much as we can to make tomorrow come faster. He smiled and nodded, letting her drag him along. Eri's adoption. It was the next day and both Izuku and Tsu were in Niza's office once again, but they weren't alone this time. Joining them was Inko, Ganma, Bell, Aizawa, and Togata. Niza had just finished explaining the situation, and when Tsu looked at Izuku, it looked like he was about to die from nervousness. She placed her hand on his knee to calm him down, which worked a little. Nizu. And that's why you were all called here today. The couple could feel 5 pairs of eyes staring at them, wondering what to say. Ganma walked over to the two and crouched down in front of them. Ganma. Midoriya. Izuku. Hi there, I'm Mr. Asui. Tsu. Dad, I know you're probably upset, but I chose to do this. Karo. Ganma sighed. Ganma. I'm not upset, I'm just confused. When did you two get together? Tsu. The day of the Provisional licensing exam. Ganma. I see. Midoriya, any funny business happened between you two? Izuku. What? And no, sir. Belle then walked over and placed her hand on her husband's shoulder. Belle. Hun, you're scaring the poor boy. Let up a little, okay? Ganma. I'm only asking. Belle. Karo, you know how intimidating you can be, hun. The man sighed and stood up. Ganma. Are you two sure you're ready? Yes. Nizu. I wouldn't approve if they weren't. Inko then stood from her seat and walked over, placing her hand on Izuku's cheek. Inko. Oh, my sweet baby boy, growing up so fast. I can't wait to meet my granddaughter. She smiled and went back to her seat. Then Aizawa spoke up. Aizawa. Midoriya, Asui, I trust both your and Niza's judgment, don't let this screw with your work. They both nodded and Niza motioned for them to come to his desk, which they did. He passed them a small stack of papers. Nizu. Go through these and then give them back. Once you do, I'll scan them over and send them to both the hospital and child services. You'll be Eri's official guardians. Izuku and Tsu quickly picked up pens from Niza's desk and sat down, reading through the paperwork and filling in information quickly. With 10 minutes they were done and gave the papers back to Nizu. Nizu. Great, now it should only take a couple hours to register the two of you, which will give you enough time to get to the hospital areas being kept. They thanked the principal and rushed out, their parents having no chance to keep up with them. Aizawa caught up though and bound them with his capture tool. Aizawa. Wait for us, you two. As soon as the others caught up, they started walking, and it wasn't until part way through the walk that Togata finally spoke up. Togata. So, why did you two want this? Don't get me wrong, I'm all for it, but why? Izuku. With everything Eri's been through, the system would just do more damage, and since she likes you and me, I figured it should be one of us or someone we trusted. But since you have enough on your plate right now, I didn't think you could handle Eri alone, and I have Tsu here to help. Togata. I see. What about you, Asui? Tsu. I just wanted to raise a kid and Eri gives me the opportunity without getting pregnant. Karo, I still want to be a hero, so I'll find a way to balance it. The blonde boy nodded and they kept walking, eventually coming up to the school parking lot. Izuku and Tsu got in their parents' respective cars and Togata rode with Aizawa. A couple hours later they arrived and exited their cars. They went inside and walked up to the check-in desk. Nurse. How may I help you? Aizawa. I am the pro-hero Eraserhead here to check on Eri, the small girl with the horn, along with her guardians Izuku Midoriya and Tsuyu Asui. The nurse started typing on her computer and found Eri's file had been freshly updated. Nurse. If her guardians could step up and show a form of photo ID, that would be appreciated. Izuku and Tsu walked up to the desk and showed her their school IDs. Nurse. Great, thank you. Now Eri has been moved to a regular room once her fever went down. She's in room 125. You'll want to head down that hall, take a left, go up the stairs and head straight. It will be on your left. They thanked her and followed her directions. Inko, Bell, Ganma, and Togata had to stay in the lobby though. After a minute they reached the room and Aizawa knocked. Eri. Who is it? Aizawa. Funny scarf man. And two others, one you already know. Eri. Oh, okay. He opened the door, allowing Izuku and Tsu to walk in, causing the girl to light up at the sight of Izuku, but no smile which worried him. Eri, Deku. Izuku walked over to the bed and sat on it next to Eri. Izuku. Hi Eri. This is my girlfriend Tsu. He motioned towards Tsu, who waved a little and sat at a chair next to the bed. Eri. Hi Tsu. I'm Eri. Izuku noticed how nervous the girl became when she noticed Tsu, so he placed his hand on her shoulder. Izuku. It's okay, she's nice. His smile calmed Eri down. Eri. Why are you here? Izuku. Well, you see, there's something me and Tsu need to tell you, but first you need to answer a question, okay? She nodded. Izuku. Who would you want to live with when you get out of the hospital? Eri leapt at him and hugged him. Eri, you. Izuku chuckled. Izuku. Good, because me and Tsu here adopted you. Eri. What does that mean? Tsu. Karo adoption is when a child without parents is taken in by others and become their child. Eri. So I'm Izuku. You're mine and Tsu's daughter now. The girl lit up once again, but there still wasn't a smile, so Izuku motioned Aizawa over. Izuku, whispering. Doesn't the UA cultural festival happen soon? Aizawa, whispering. Yeah. Let me guess, you want her to go to see her smile. Izuku, whispering. Yeah. Aizawa, whispering. Well, she's allowed to leave tomorrow, so she'll definitely be there. Izuku, whispering. Thanks. Aizawa nodded and left the room, letting the new family bond a little. Lit a roommate. The next day, around noon, 4 people walked into the 1A dorm building. 2 had green hair, 1 had white, and the last had black. Izuku and Tsu were walking on either side of an excited Eri, still no smile unfortunately, and Aizawa was walking behind them. There were a few of their classmates in the common space. They looked at the small group when they heard them enter. Kirishima stood up and walked over, making Eri nervous, so she hid behind Izuku. Kirishima. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to scare ya. He crouched down to her height as she peeked her head around Izuku's leg. Kirishima. You're Eri, right? She nodded and he stuck out his hand to her. Kirishima. Well then, I'm Ajiro Kirishima, nice to meet you, broette. She looked up to Izuku, who nodded and smiled. She placed her hand in Kirishima's extended grasp and he shook it a little before letting go. Eri. Are you a friend of my papa? Kirishima. If you mean Midoriya bro here, then yeah, I'm even friends with Tsu here. Eri. Bro? So you're like brothers? Does that make you my uncle? The boy smiled and nodded. Kirishima. Sure, I'm Uncle Ajiro to you from now on. He stood up to talk to Izuku and Tsu. Kirishima. I hope you guys are ready for this. Izuku. We are. Tsu. Actually, Kirishima. Karo, could you help? We were prepared to do everything, but this development of her seeing you as an uncle means she trusts you. Kirishima. You can count on me, guys. I heard you two were moving into a new room. Need any help? Izuku. No, but thank you. Kirishima. Oh, and try to steer clear of Mina, you know how she gets. Aizawa. Noted, let's go. Izuku and Tsu nodded before walking again, waving at their classmates, most of whom gave some form of approval. They reached the elevator and went up to the second floor of the girls' side, finding only one door in the entire hallway. Aizawa. All the stuff you packed have been put inside here. Niza even supplied clothes and toys for Eri. You will still need to eat downstairs though, as we couldn't fit a kitchen in here. Good luck. He then stepped back into the elevator and went back down, leaving the small family to set up on their own. A few hours later, and both Izuku and Tsu flopped onto their bed exhausted. Eri tried to climb up but failed, having Izuku bring her up instead. Tsu. Karo, that was tiring. Izuku. Yeah. They then heard a small grumbling sound come from Eri. Izuku. Hungry? She nodded. Izuku. Well, what do you want to eat, Eri? Eri. What can I have? Tsu. How about we have a friend surprise you? Karo. Eri. A surprise? Sure. Once again she didn't smile, but she still radiated excitement regardless. Tsu picked her up and put her on her shoulders as Izuku made a call to the best chef he knew. After he ended the call, they all played until Izuku was sent a message telling him the food was ready downstairs. Izuku led them downstairs and over to the kitchen table, which even had a tall chair for Eri to sit at. Then Bakugo walked out with 2 bowls and 1 plate. Bakugo. You couldn't call Fat Lips? Izuku. He only makes sweets kaken. Besides, everyone knows you're the best at cooking in the dorms. Bakugo smirked. Bakugo. Damn darn right. He corrected himself, remembering Eri was there. He then sat the bowls down by Izuku and Eri, and the plate by Tsu. Bakugo. The nerd and the kid get katsudon, not spicy, and frog legs gets a steak. Now eat up before the pink glutton finds her way over. Eri. How do I eat katudo? Katsuki. It's katsudon, and watch him, he'll show you. He walked away and Eri looked to Izuku, who simply smiled and began to teach her. After they finished eating, Izuku and Tsu took Eri over to the couch in the common space to watch TV with a few other classmates. They sat down and Tokoemi walked over with a blanket over his head. Tsu. Karo, why do you have that on, Tokoemi? Tokoemi, muffled. I was told Eri has a fear of birds. So blanket. Eri. Why are you hiding, sir? Tokoemi, muffled. My appearance may bring you fear. Eri. Why? Tokoemi. Because of my quirk. It makes my head look like a bird. Eri. I won't be scared, you seem nice. Tokoemi. Midoriya? Izuku. Go ahead. Tokoemi nodded and removed the blanket. True to her word, his appearance didn't seem to make Eri nervous. Tokoemi. I am Tokoemi Fumikage. You are brave to face the darkness you have and come out the other side. Eri. I'm Eri Midoriya. I don't know what you mean, but it's nice to meet you. He smiled and nodded silently before sitting down nearby. Before they could focus on the TV, a certain pink classmate appeared in the common space and locked eyes with Eri. Ashido Yarai. As she ran over, Izuku and Tsu smiled to each other. Eri would be okay. Cultural Festival. It had been a month since Eri moved into the dorms and she was happy, though she still couldn't smile. However, Izuku had a plan to fix that, give her an experience that would make her so happy and excited that she wouldn't be able to not smile. That experience would be the UA Cultural Festival. Class 1A had already decided to do a concert. It was the day of the festival and everyone in 1A were prepared. Only one thing was wrong. Izuku was giving the gear one last check of quality when he saw something concerning. Izuku. Oh no. Tsu. What is it? Karo. Izuku pulled out the rope he would use to hold up their disco ball, Yuga Oyama. Izuku. The rope's frayed, it won't survive 2 laps. I need to get another. Tsu. Just ask Momo. Izuku shook his head. Izuku. No, she'll need the energy to play. I can run and get one in under an hour. Tell the others I'll be right back. Tsu nodded and gave him a kiss on the cheek before waving as he ran off. Then she felt a tug on her shirt. When she looked down, she saw Eri. Eri, where's Papa going? Tsu crouched down to her level. Tsu, getting a rope, he'll be back soon. Karo, okay, sweetie? Eri nodded and walked off to go ask Sato for a cupcake. Tsu was worried sick. It was only 5 minutes until the concert started and Izuku hadn't even sent her a text. She was about to go out to look for him when the green-haired boy burst through the door. He had a few scrapes and bruises, there was even a stick in his hair. Tsu rushed over to him. Tsu, are you okay? Izuku panted and nodded. Izuku, yeah, I'll tell you what happened later, for now let's do this. Tsu nodded as she pulled the stick out from his hair, then Uraraka came over and slammed the band shirt over his head. Uraraka, 4 minutes go get changed. Izuku, yes. Izuku then ran towards the locker rooms to change into the dance outfit he would be wearing for the first half of the concert. He reappeared with only a minute remaining. He ran over to his classmates to await the start. With just seconds left, Tsu gave him another kiss on the cheek. Tsu, break a leg. Not literally. They both chuckled as the concert started. The class ran out to their areas and began their display. After the concert was over, the crowd of people left, leaving 1A to clean up. As they were, Togata walked over with Eri on his shoulder. Once he put her down, she immediately ran over to Tsu and Izuku, a giant smile plastered on her face. Eri, Mama, Papa. They turned to see her and her smile. They both crouched to her level as she jumped into their arms. Izuku, Eri, did you like it? Eri nodded furiously. Eri, yeah, Uncle Mirio had me on his shoulders the whole time. Tsu, Karo, what was your favorite part? Eri, I really like when Papa did that thing where he launched Mr. Aoyama in the air. Oh, Uncle Kaken's explosion at the beginning was cool too, and Ms. Hagakure was so pretty when she glowed. Izuku and Tsu chuckled at her excitement. Then Mineta ran over. Mineta, come on guys, we gotta clean, we'll never make it to the beauty pageant at this rate. He then ran off and Izuku turned back to Tsu and Eri. Izuku, why don't you two go and enjoy the festival? Get some mother-daughter bonding in. Eri shook her head and hugged Izuku. Eri, no, Papa must come with us, I love Mama but I want you both. She pouted and Izuku chuckled again. Izuku, alright then, Snowball. You'll have to wait until we're done cleaning then. Eri smiled. Eri, okay. She let go of him and let her parents get back to cleaning up. It took nearly an hour, but the mess was eventually cleaned up. Once they were done, Izuku and Tsu took Eri by the hands and walked off to enjoy the rest of the festival. New developments. Tsu watched as a mysterious black energy started to spew out of Izuku's arm. Their class and 1B had been participating in a joint training session. This was the last battle, everyone wanted it to be eventful, but this was unexpected. She looked at his face, he was scared and in pain. Tsu yelling, Mr. Aizawa, he's in pain, Karo. Aizawa, you're right. Yelling, everyone stay here, I'll deal with this. With that, he leapt off of the platform and started swinging from the pipes using his capture tool. Then All Might walked over. All Might, whispering, you should go too. If his panic makes this get any worse, you might be the only one here capable of calming him. Tsu, Karo, are you sure? The skeleton man nodded, so she started after Aizawa. All Might radioed to the tired hero why she was tagging along, to which he agreed. She quickly caught up to him, but it still took a little longer to get to the groups. Once they were, it was clear the situation had gotten worse. Both teams were cowering behind pipes and pieces of concrete to avoid getting hit by the energy tendrils. Aizawa, Asui, I can erase his quirk, but you'll need to calm him to prevent this from going off again. She nodded and Aizawa activated his quirk, and deactivated Izuku's, which made him start to fall. Tsu quickly jumped up and caught Izuku, taking him off to the side. She laid him down, but he didn't want to let go. Tsu, Karo, it's okay, I'm here. Izuku, I lost control after all that training, I lost control again, I almost hurt our classmates and 1B. He received a kiss to keep him quiet for a minute. Tsu, and you were able to hold it back enough to not hurt them. Karo, I'm proud of you, and I know you'll control it eventually. He smiled and nodded before hugging her tighter. Izuku. Thank you? I don't deserve you, Tsu. Tsu. Yes, you do. Monoma. Wow, look at this, the big bad powerhouse of 1A needs his girlfriend to save him. The two sent a glare to the blonde boy who had walked over. Then he was wrapped in 2 sets of capture tool. Aizawa. Go to the dorms, you two. Shinso. We'll take it from here. Izuku, whispering. Are they related? Tsu shrugged and helped him to his feet. Tsu. Thank you, Mr. Aizawa. The man just nodded as both capture tool users dragged Monoma away. All might. So this is what I managed to dig up. He dropped a notebook onto the table. He then opened it to a page about a man named Daigoro Banjo. The couple sitting across from him looked at the information. All might. What you told me sounded familiar, which is when I started looking up heroes with quirks such as the one you described. When I did, I found him, Daigoro Banjo, Chu. Izuku. Quirk Black Whip. He told me. All Might, recovering from being interrupted, continued. All Might. Anyway, I looked more into people like him. People with quirks that aren't that strong their own but suddenly got stronger. That's what is in this notebook. Luckily for you, we already know how to train you for one of them, Float, my master's quirk. Tsu flipped through the book until she noticed something crossed out in the 4th entry, which was already incredibly short. Tsu. Why is the cause of death crossed out here? Karo. All Might became nervous, like it wasn't something he wanted to outright say. This caused Izuku to get suspicious. Izuku. All Might, what's going on? Now, seeing that he wasn't going to get out of this anytime soon, the former symbol of peace relented. All Might. He died early. Izuku looked confused. Izuku. But you're the only one who didn't since you beat All for One. Tsu. Except the 4th never did. Karo, it says so. Izuku looked at it again, reading that the man went off the grid until his body found, his systems ravaged by some unknown disease. Izuku. Then how does this factor in? All Might sighed. All Might. It's just a theory, but I believe One for All is what killed him. Izuku. What? Why, you can't be serious. Then how are you alive? Tsu. Izu, think. He's quirkless, the first ever quirkless user of it. Karo. Izuku stopped for a second to think. Izuku. So I'm fine. All Might nodded. All Might. As we know, the existence of multiple quirks can break a person. When All for One forces quirks onto people, they become brain dead. So maybe the willingness factor and the overwhelming power contained within One for All makes it a poison. Izuku. And since the other quirks are now part of its core, they don't count as extra quirks. The Tsu realized something. Tsu. Izuku, All Might, the quirkless population decreases every generation. The two looked at her confused for a second before realization dawned on them. Izuku. I could be the last. Then All Might stood up. All Might. Then we must ensure All for One dies in your lifetime. Izuku nodded and stood up. Tsu followed suit. Izuku. I swear I will complete One for All and its purpose. Tsu grabbed his hand. Tsu. And I swear I'll be with you every step of the way, you won't shake me even if you want to. Karo. After saying their goodbyes, they went back to their dorm room to relieve Todoroki of babysitting Eri. Tsu would have to put her words into practice sooner than she would hope. Leaving. Destruction, defeat, sorrow, anger, and fear. Those are the emotions felt by all within Japan. A large siege of the League/Paranormal Liberation Front was made, and it wasn't pretty. 4 groups of heroes were dispatched, including licensed students. 1 to apprehend hero spies, 1 to evacuate civilians, another to invade Jaku Hospital, and 1 more to siege the Gunga Villa. The day started with total success, then one by one, the odds flipped to the villains. Shigaraki, now with All for One, awakened and destroyed half the city with one touch. Then he awoke Gigantomachia underneath the villa, causing mass destruction as he made his way to Jaku. Both these events brought the deaths of countless heroes, and even more were severely injured. But all that was a week ago, and now Izuku was standing on the roof of the dorms, tattered hero suit on, tears threatening to roll from his eyes. He had just done the hardest thing yet, told everyone he knew about One for All, and said goodbye. Just as he was about to leap from the roof, a hand placed on his shoulder stopped him. Tsu, wait. Karo. Izuku turned around to see his girlfriend, in her own hero suit. Tsu, I'm coming too. Izuku shook his head as he moved her gloved hand to his cheek. Izuku, you can't. I'm a target, you'd get hurt. Tsu, getting hurt is a key part of being a hero. Karo, getting hurt so others don't is our job. Izuku, but what about Eri? Tsu chuckled softly. Tsu, Karo, you worry too much. You know she loves being around the class. And she loves knowing we're doing work. Karo, she'll be okay, Izuku. He sighed, finally relenting. Izuku, okay, Tsu, you can come. A kiss was placed on his cheek. Izuku, we should move. The more distance from Yue, the better. Tsu nodded as he turned around and leapt off, using float and black whip to fly. She then followed him. All might. Young Midoriya, young Asui. There's an attack on. Izuku. I know, I sensed it. Thank you. He then clicked off the communicator. It had been just a few days since the two had left UA and their class. Now they were on their way to yet another attack. There had been many, especially ever since the country-wide breakouts. Hardened criminals were all of a sudden flooding the streets and attacking almost anyone they found. Yelling, "Yo, no!" The two looked over as they heard the girl's voice and crashes after. Tsu, over there? Karo. Izuku nodded as he started to emit purple smoke and change directions with her. Once they were close, Izuku frowned, recognizing the villain and the student he was attacking. Izuku. Muscular, I barely beat him back at camp. Shindo's vibrations seem to have had an effect though. Tsu. Tsu. Yeah, Izuku? Izuku. I'll fight, you get Shindo, his classmate, and the civilians to safety. She nodded and his smoke production ramped up, covering them both. They then hopped down, and Izuku punched the large villain away as Tsu scooped up the now unconscious Shindo. She then walked over to where the girl and civilians were. Tsu. He's hurt, but he should be okay. She stepped out of the smoke, and the girl seemed to recognize her. You're one of UA's two Rouge students. Tsu nodded and set Shindo down. Tsu. Karo, all of you need to go. Deku is taking care of the villain. She then stood back up and hopped away towards where she heard Izuku and Muscular go. After a few minutes she found Izuku standing over an unconscious Muscular, and holding him with black whip. Tsu. Got him? Karo. Izuku. Yes. She walked over and gripped his hand with her own. Tsu. It'll be okay. He nodded and looked to the sky. Izuku. I hope so. Japan was in shambles, heroes were retiring left and right, and the streets were owned by villains. If it was going to be alright, then a lot of work had to be done. On track. Izuku, Tsu, All Might, Endeavor, and Hawks all stood by the burnt, yet still living, Lady Negant. Izuku and Tsu had been able to hold her off, though it was Izuku's newly awakened FA gene that allowed them to defeat her. Tsu grabbed hold of his hand and he turned to look at her. She could tell that something was brewing behind his eyes, and it wasn't good. Izuku. Tsu, you can't go to the mansion with us. Tsu. Karo, why? I can handle myself. Izuku. I know, but if it's a trap, I might not be able to protect everyone, and Eri needs at least one of us. Tsu. I promised I would follow you anywhere, Izuku, and I intend to keep that promise. Karo. Izuku grabbed her shoulders and looked her in the eyes. Izuku. Please, just this once, don't. Okay? Tsu sighed and nodded. Tsu. But I'll still be there, just outside. Izuku smiled and nodded. Izuku. That's all I wanted. Thank you. It was a trap, they knew it. What they didn't expect was how powerful the explosion was. The mansion was completely destroyed and the force was enough to send Tsu back a little even while standing halfway between it and the tree line. Thankfully no one was really hurt or dead, but Izuku had changed. When Tsu looked in his eyes, they seemed dark, not like their usual dark green but more lifeless. Once everyone was accounted for, he left. No one but Tsu had seen him walk away. She decided she would follow him, but the moment she almost caught up to him, Black Whip was wrapped around her. Tsu yelling, "Izuku Karo, what are you doing?" Izuku, "Go back, Tsu." Tsu yelling, "No, I won't, Karo. If letting go alone once did this, then I need to stay with you." She shot her tongue out at him, and it stuck to his hair. Izuku, knowing he wouldn't get away, let go of Black Whip. When he did, she fell to the ground and walked over to him, placing her hand on his shoulder and retracting her tongue. "Tsu, turn around, Izuku. Talk to me, please." He did as she asked, and she placed her hands on his cheeks. "Tsu, Karo, Izuku, tell me what's going through your head." Izuku, "He won't stop ever. He will use anything and anyone to get to me. I need to do this alone from now on, Tsu, I'm sorry." Tsu then removed her hands and slapped him. Izuku, "Why?" He then looked up and saw her with tears spilling from her eyes. "Tsu, Karo, Izuku, I see, can't let you be alone, I can't." Izuku, "Why not, Tsu?" Tsu, "Because if I did, then Eri would have a father." Before Izuku could ask why again, she answered. "Tsu, you'd be dead, Karo, if you did this alone. You'd die faster. At least if we're together we have a chance, and if we don't have one, at least we'll die together." Izuku, "I would never forgive myself if you died when you shouldn't have." He received another slap. Tsu yelling, "And I would never forgive you if you died because you were too nice to ask for help." She then hugged him and buried her head into his chest. "Tsu, let me go with you. Karo." Izuku hugged her back. Izuku, "Okay. I still don't like this, but you're right. I can't do this alone." They separated and shared a quick kiss before walking away, their communicators abandoned nearby. But as they disappeared, All Might walked into the small clearing and held up his communicator. "All Might. They're gone. And they've left their communicators. Hawks. How about the trackers in their suits?" All Might. "Still attached." Then a new voice came from the channel they were on. "Nizu. Good, because 1A is becoming restless. They may soon demand to be dispatched to bring them back." All Might. "Right. For now, keep any eye on them from afar. Don't let them know we still have their signal." Grunts of acknowledgement were heard from the others as they ended their conversation. All Might placed the device back into his pocket and looked up into the night sky. All Might. "Master, you'll be avenged soon. You and all the others that monster and his influence have touched." He then walked back to the others, giving the couple a small head start. As he started his car, her smiled and let out a small chuckle. All Might. "As long as she keeps him in line, everything will be fine." He then pressed his foot to the pedal and sped off. Brought back. It had been 2 weeks since Izuku and Tsu left the heroes to be on their own. They had been fighting constantly, barely stopping to sleep and drink, though they never ate. Their hero suits were in rough shape, Izuku's metal boots now resembling large claws and his overall suit making him seem more monster than man. Tsu's suit wasn't much better. Her frog-like boots had been destroyed, leaving her barefoot, and her hair was a tangled mess, making her resemble a feral animal more than a hero. Now they were headed in the direction of another one of Izuku's danger sense pings. "Tsu. Izuku. Once we beat this one, we need to eat." Karo. Izuku. Agreed. I have enough left in my wallet for some fast food, but not much else. Tsu. I do too. I guess we can save mine for another day. Izuku hummed a response as they came upon a familiar place for Izuku, the crater left from All Might and All for One's battle. Now there was a large courtyard with a statue of All Might in the middle. Izuku. Kamino Ward. Tsu. Look by the statue's base. Karo. Izuku looked down to see a crowd of civilians, all with makeshift weapons, surrounding a villain he had seen on TV before. Izuku. Dictator. He can control people. He's using those civilians as human shields. Tsu. What do we do? Izuku. We sneak around in. Dictator yelling. Come down from there, Deku, or are you too scared to face me? Izuku. Or we get spotted and attempt to push through that crowd. Ready? Tsu. Karo as I'll ever be. The two then leapt from the building they were on and into the courtyard. They were then swarmed by the civilians and not given any chances to escape or attack. Civilian 1. I can't control myself. Civilian 2. I'm as sorry. Civilian 3. Please help us. As the two, tired and battered, were trying to think of ways to beat Dictator, they heard him speak up. Dictator. Ha ha. I've done it, I've captured Dek. Then an explosion was heard and a familiar move hit Dictator, knocking him out. Bakugo. Guys, I found them. The civilians had cleared out, having been freed when Bakugo took out Dictator. The villain in question was now trapped in a block of ice, courtesy of Todoroki. Soon the rest of 1A arrived on the scene, and all with only one purpose: bring their friends home. All 18 stood in front of the two. Bakugo. You two are real dumbass, you know that? Izuku. This is the only way we can all go back to laughing and smiling. Then Bakugo laughed. Bakugo. Oh, that's rich, look at me, I can smile and laugh right now. He then got serious. Bakugo. But can you too? Tsu. Izuku, he's right. Look at us. Karo, we're both a mess. Izuku looked at her, but she spoke before he could, already knowing what was on his mind. Tsu. I came along to ensure neither of us died, but if we keep going, we will. We don't have much money left, Izu. Kirishima, yelling. Yeah, and you still haven't joined me at the gym. Kaminari, yelling. I still haven't gotten you back for kicking my ass in Smash. Ashido, yelling. I still need to help you dance. The whole class was yelling their own encouragement for them to come back, but Izuku drowned them out. Instead, he was focusing on his girlfriend and her eyes. Worry, fear, and hope, those were what filled her eyes. Tsu. Eri needs both her mama and papa, Izuku. Karo, so please, let's go. If All for One or Shigaraki come, we will handle them, I swear to you we will. She placed her hand on his cheek, and he placed his over hers. Izuku. Alright, Tsu. Let's go. They then lowered their hands and turned to the class. Izuku. Alright. Let's go, guys. Cheering was heard as the class celebrated Izuku and Tsu agreeing to come back. Thriving Forest. Eri awoke from a nightmare of when she was with Overhaul screaming. She looked around her room and slowly took note of everything that was different than the one she was kept in for much of her life. In the corner, a large collection of the best quality stuffed animals instead of empty cobwebs. On a wall, a dresser full of her favorite clothes, none of which resembling the tattered gown she had worn. Underneath her, a large and comfortable bed with the thickest of blankets, unlike the worn-out cot she had previously slept on. She then heard a thundering sound of 2 sets of footsteps, hurrying to her room in response to her scream. When she was young, the sound would have frightened her, but now she knew who they belonged to. Just a few seconds longer, and the door flew open, revealing her parents, Izuku Midoriya and Tsuyu Midoriya. The two rushed over to their daughter, who was crying in response to the nightmare. They hadn't changed a lot since their times at UA. Izuku had only gotten slightly taller, keeping his lean build. Another difference was the ever-present bags under his eyes, as he often stayed up later to listen to police scanners. Tsu had gotten a little taller too. In fact, some could swear she was an inch or 2 taller than Izuku. There was also a scar on the right side of her forehead from where Toga had cut her goggles off during the Second War arc. Izuku. Eri, what's wrong? Tsu. We heard you scream. Karo, was it another nightmare? She nodded and they both hugged her tightly. When they separated, Izuku spoke up. Izuku. I'm not sure if you want to hear this, but he is gone. Gone for good. I got the news this morning that he died in his cell in Tartarus. Eri. How? Izuku. Starvation. He didn't eat at all for a whole month apparently. Eri. Oh. She looked down in disappointment. Tsu. Karo, sweetie, what's wrong? Eri. I know I shouldn't care about him, But I really wanted him to stay alive long enough to see me become a hero. Izuku. I'm sorry, Eri, I truly am. I wish I could help you. Eri. But you can't, he's dead and that's that. She then felt a hand on her shoulder. When she looked over, it was her father's. Izuku. Now there's only one reason for you to become a hero. Do you remember what it was? You came up with it before me and your mother graduated. Eri smiled and nodded. Eri. Yeah, to become the hero you were for me to as many people as possible. Izuku smiled and hugged her. Izuku. That's my little snowball. Tsu. You should get back to bed. Karo, you have a big day tomorrow. Eri. Yeah, my first day. She received 2 kisses on her horn, one from each of her parents before they left her room. Izuku and Tsu made their way up to their own room and laid down in their bed. Before they went to sleep, Tsu reacted to a sudden movement. Tsu. Mph. It kicked. Karo. She removed the blanket to reveal her very pregnant stomach. Izuku then placed his hand over it and felt another kick. Izuku. That one felt a little frog-like. I think this one already developed your quirk. Tsu chuckled. Tsu. Maybe. Karo, maybe. Izuku leaned in and gave her a kiss. Izuku. Eri will always be our first. But this one will still be just as special. Tsu. Yes, it will. Now you need to sleep as well, Mr. Number 1. You have a heroics class to sub in for tomorrow. Izuku. Yeah, I know. Good night, Tsu, I love you. Tsu. I love you too, Izuku, now get to bed. I'm sure Eri would prefer not to be embarrassed by having her half-awake father walking around the school. Karo. They shared a kiss before laying down completely and falling asleep. They were happy, Eri was happy, and they were sure their unborn child would be happy as well. Now, only death would be able to tear them apart.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.